Blast in Pakistan's Quetta has killed at least 5 people, including a child. An alleged suicide bomber targeted a moving vehicle which was carrying security personnel. The blast took place in the Baleli area. About 20 people suffered injuries, have been moved to a civil hospital in Quetta. Meanwhile, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or the TTP, has claimed responsibility for the attack. TTP had unilaterally called off the ceasefire with the Pakistani government just 48 hours ago. The area has been cordoned off. Investigation has begun, and the blast comes a day after Pakistan's Minister of State of Foreign Affairs, Hina Rabbani Khar, led a delegation to Kabul on a one-day visit. This is the first such high-level visit since the change of government in April and is seen as significant given the fact that the delegation is headed by a woman minister. Besides, according to reports, Mullah Yaqub, the Taliban's defense minister, rejected Pakistan's request to meet with the foreign minister to discuss security issues and bilateral relations during the latter's one-day trip to Afghanistan. Now for more on this, we're being joined by Amar Shaheen, senior journalist. Also joining us is our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik from Islamabad. Thank you both of you for joining us. Anas, my first question to you, what can you tell us about the situation on ground currently?
Well, what we know so far, Haim, is that at least 5 people have been killed, 20 have been injured. Those 5 who have been killed includes a child as well, after what is now believed was a suicide bomber who has struck a moving FC vehicle, Frontier Constabulary vehicle, a paramilitary forces vehicle that was going to take part in the anti-polio drive, the monthly anti-polio drive. The blast took place at Baleli Road of Quetta. Baleli Road, on one end, it corners the Quetta cantonment. In between, it's the agricultural land of Quetta, and the road onwards further stretches towards the airport road as well. So it's a strategically important place where this blast, where this explosion has taken place. The banned terror group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, in a detailed statement now, just very a short while back, while you were reading those details, has issued a statement, and if I just tell you to sum it up, they've said that they have avenged the killing of Umar Khalid Khorasani, the Tehreek-e-Taliban commander who was killed in Afghanistan during the ceasefire, and they vow to continue to keep attacking. Now, it is too pertinent to mention that just roughly 48 hours back, we saw the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, a terror group that Pakistan says has been operating from Afghanistan. They've been alleging that time and again. They had unilaterally ended the ceasefire with the Pakistani government. The Pakistani government is yet to react on the matter, but clearly that remains as one of the biggest challenges that the newly handed over or taken over army chief, General Asim Munir, is to face as he goes on to command the Pakistani military.
Right, absolutely, Anas. Amar, coming to you now, you just heard, Anas, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility for the attack after it unilaterally called off ceasefire with the Pakistani government just 48 hours ago. Also, Anas just mentioned that this area is of strategic importance. What can you tell us? How do you assess the situation here?
Right, so the convoy was traveling from Baleli to Quetta on its way back after the polio drive, the first day of the polio drive. Let's not forget, one day ago, the government announced renewal of the polio drive. This is what we get when we negotiate peace with terrorists, and the guarantors of the peace are the other kind of terrorists. So the Afghan Taliban brokered the peace deal with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Pakistani Taliban, who we were told were the bad Taliban, and the Afghanistan Taliban were the good Taliban, and they guaranteed that there will be peace. Terrorists guaranteeing Pakistan there will be peace. Yesterday, there were orders from the high command of TTP to the militants to stage terror attacks across Pakistan. So it, as bad as it is, it's not a huge surprise that this blast has taken place. Over 100 polio workers have been killed since 2012 in Pakistan. And coincidentally, that only 2 countries in the world that have the menace of polio also have the menace of Taliban. Taliban being the biggest killers of polio workers in Afghanistan and Pakistan as well.
Right, Amar, of course. Now, what do you think has triggered the calling of the ceasefire here, and what can we expect going forward?
If we remember, as soon as the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, the chief of ISI went there, and he had his famous chai ka cup, that cup of tea with the Taliban leadership. asserting that Pakistan, is kind of behind taking over Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, and the whole world more or less was kind of complacent in Taliban taking over. What is the cause that the terrorists didn't go along with the peace? Because they're terrorists, because that's what they do. What are they going to do? Diplomacy? Are they going to progress? That's not going to happen. These are terrorists. You're negotiating with them. What happened to the spokesperson, Ehsanullah Ehsan? He was captured by Pakistani authorities. What happened to him? He was let go. We were told as journalists not to report on Ehsanullah Ehsan. He visited our offices. He gave us interviews while he was in the custody of the authorities, and then he went away. He's not to be found. We were told, don't do stories on him. We will tell you what happened. We will punish the people who let a proclaimed terrorist go. It didn't happen. Why did the peace not work? Because this is not how peace works.
All right, Anas, coming to you now. As I mentioned earlier, day after Pakistan's Minister of Foreign Affairs led a delegation to Kabul for a one-day visit, we are now hearing reports of a blast. How do you assess that?
Well, it's quite significant because the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan have always been alleged of being controlled or being operated from Afghanistan. We understand, as Emmer mentioned as well, that the Pakistani government was quick to say that the ceasefire that lasted for about 8 months or so was brokered with the help of the Afghan Taliban, as they were the guarantees, the Haqqanis were the guarantors. In that context, when the Pakistani Minister of Defense, State Minister of Foreign Affairs is not given FaceTime with the Afghan Minister of Defense, this is quite significant. It shows the trajectory of what can possibly go wrong in the absence of engaging with the Tehreek-e-Taliban, with the TTP, in the absence of not surrendering to their demands. So that remains a bigger challenge for the Pakistani state and for the newly taken over army chief as well, the COS General Asim Munir, to ensure that law and order and peace and stability, at least in the country, continues, and that Pakistan is not faced with a war on terror 2.0, with the fact that in Afghanistan just next door there's a Taliban government that gives a fertile land for the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan to brew itself, to harbor itself, to nurture itself, and gives that perfect ground. So that is the biggest challenge on the part of Pakistan, on the new administration here, the new military administration to be precise, to ensure peace and stability, at least in the country. Him?
All right. Well, Anas and Emmer, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. We will, of course, continue to track the situation very closely. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.